Hey there, everyone. I hope you're having a great day today. It's Michelle here, and today I want to talk to you about feelings of self worth, or more accurately, lack of self worth, and how it is that those of us with so much compassion for other people have such a hard time finding compassion for ourselves. And if you've ever tried to boost your self worth with affirmations, then I'm sure you know what I mean. So, common affirmations like I am worthy, or I am enough, or I am more than that one moment, those all sound great, right? And don't get me wrong, they're absolutely true. Those things are all true. But here's the thing, affirmations don't work. They sit in our conscious brain and they don't penetrate into our subconscious. I spent 2 decades trying to force affirmations into my conscious brain. It was exhausting, it was demoralizing, and it made me feel like a failure. And therapist after therapist told me the same thing. Don't dwell on that. When that comes to us, you just tell yourself this. And I diligently did every single thing they said, but I just couldn't make it work. I always felt worse after I left. And no matter how often I repeated those phrases, I still felt like I was never good enough. I was constantly comparing myself to other people and always wondering if this person's bad mood was because they hated me, or if maybe I said something to make someone mad at me when they didn't text me back right away. It was overwhelming. These feelings were running my whole life. I couldn't sleep sometimes. I had stomach issues. I didn't really know it at the time, but I was in what we call survival mode. So I did this for well over 20 years, all through my 20s and 30s, even into my 40s, before I finally said enough is enough. I'm not doing this anymore. There has to be a better way. So one day I was talking about university, and the topic turned to my field, which was linguistics, cognitive linguistics, neurolinguistics. And it was like a light bulb went off for me, and I realized that this was the answer. And I don't know why it took me so long to realize it, but I guess I was just trusting that the professionals knew more about this than I did. But in that moment, I remembered that how we talk to ourselves defines our reality. But, and this is a really key point, we have to be able to believe it. It has to be plausible. So these affirmations that I was told to use, like you're strong, you're brave, well, they didn't work because deep down I didn't believe them. And they were no more than me bullshitting myself. At a core level, way down deep inside, I didn't believe any of those things. And so no matter how many times I repeated, you're loved and respected, I couldn't hypnotize myself into internalizing something that I didn't believe. So what did work? Well, here's the thing. We have this whole inner world of children who live inside of us. They're all in there at various ages and stages. And when something happens to us, an event that, might be embarrassing, or excuse me, it hurt our feelings, or let's say dad comes home angry one day and he's acting a bit out of control, and that scares us. And it could be any event that was disturbing, and we make up a story about it and what that means about us. So that might look like this. You're little and the teacher asks a question and you put up a hand and you're sure that you know the answer and you get it wrong. And then the whole class laughs at you. Well, you might develop a belief that I can't put myself out there because if I fail, then everyone will laugh at me. And we might forget that this incident ever happened, excuse me, as we get older. But the part that we remember is the little girl that still lives inside of us. She never forgot. And every time you start to put yourself out there, she's piping up in the back of your brain and she's trying to protect you. And she's saying, don't do that. They'll all laugh at you. You're not safe. And so what we're told to do in this situation, according to the affirmations people, we're told to look ourselves in the mirror and say, it's okay to be brave. Well, looking at this logically, who do you think you're going to believe? This random voice who is BSing you into doing something that's going to get you laughed at? We're definitely not going to listen to them. We're not buying that. We're going to stay safely over here in the corner thinking that it's not safe to speak up with that good idea at the company meeting, even though it might get you a raise. Because in our subconscious, the stakes are too high. So as you can see, these stories that we create, these beliefs, they're our way of protecting ourselves from future hurt, whether that hurt is embarrassment or loss or some kind of specific fear that we're trying to prevent. So none of these inner children believe the affirmations because they know what we're doing and they're not buying it. Remember, they are us and we're smart cookies. And we can't fool ourselves into believing something that we just don't believe. And there's actually a name for this. We call it toxic positivity. So slapping a Band-Aid on it, and in this case, a placation or an affirmation. Unless you're highly susceptible to suggestion, this is just going to bounce right off. And this is what we see happening. And I see it happening, excuse me, I see it happening most often with very successful women who have amazing businesses, and they're very intelligent, and they're wondering, why can't I make this work, and feeling more like failures all the time. And you're not the one who's failing. The system that we've put in place to try to deal with it is what is failing you. So when I realized this, I knew that something had to change. And that's when the process of perception connection started to percolate for me. I learned to get curious and go inside my memories to find these inner children and connect with them so deeply. And this sounds hokey, and your ego will try to convince you that it's silly, because remember, we made these beliefs in order to protect ourselves from hurt and embarrassment. So if we drop the beliefs now, we leave ourselves vulnerable, right? We have this child inside who's saying, hey, no, you can't do that because this will happen. And I have a great example of that. When I was little, my dad enrolled me in a dance class in the middle of the term, and everyone knew the steps but me. I was one of the biggest kids there, but I had never danced before, and the teacher put me right up at the front of the class, and I had no idea what to do when the music started, and I was mortified, and I ended up running out in tears. And that day I decided that I would never try anything new in public until I was really good at it. And so as an adult, I forgot about that specific scenario, but I knew that I wouldn't get up for karaoke unless I had practiced the songs ahead of time, and I wouldn't spontaneously offer an idea at work without looking at it from every conceivable angle. And I missed out on a lot of opportunities in life because I had this belief. So during 2 decades of affirmations, I would say, I give myself permission to make mistakes. But my inner child from dance class said, no way. She wasn't having any of that, because not being good at something right away left me vulnerable. And our egos hate being vulnerable. So when I started to work with the inner children, I knew that what I had to do was not leave them vulnerable. So when I would go into my inner world and I would find them and listen to their false beliefs, I did not dismiss them. I had an actual conversation with them, like in my head, because that was less weird. And I talked with them with empathy. So it sounded like, hey, I know that when you made a mistake, you felt embarrassed. And I listened while she told me how much that hurt her. And I forgave her for carrying this around all the time. And I helped her understand how she misunderstood the situation. And I probably did look really funny trying these new steps that made no sense to my feet. I laughed with her and let her know that it's okay to laugh at ourselves sometimes. But we had that conversation with this little sliver of my subconscious. I made that connection with the part of myself that was so wounded. I told them the truth. Being laughed at hurts. I hate being laughed at. And I also thanked them for trying so hard to keep me safe. Hey, I know that you've held on to this all this time so that you could keep me safe, and I appreciate that. I gave them a voice, and I told them that they would always have a place as an advisor, but that I was not going to let them drive my emotional bus anymore. And at first they didn't always believe me. So remember, this is all me, right? Your inner boarding school, what I call it, of children, they're all you. And you need to hear all of this a few times before it resonates with you. And sometimes it took many times of me going back and sitting with them and hearing them and validating their feelings before they believed what I was saying. But in the end, it worked. And I try new things now. And I want to make it really clear that this is not the entire process. It's part of a 10-week intensive program that I use with my clients. And in addition to that, I also use functional lab tests to see what's going on with genetics and neurotransmitters. And we also use vagus nerve toning to reset the nervous system. And these methods all work together. So I can't say how effective any one of them would be on their own. But reparenting your inner children will be far more beneficial than wasting 20 years on affirmations like I did. So I do hope that all of that was helpful to you. If you want more info and workshops and challenges and community with other people who are doing this same work, please visit us at the 5-Step Path Out of Survival Mode on Facebook, or go to my website at the5steppath.com and download a free copy of my ebook, which is the 5-Step Path to Get Out of Survival Mode. I thank you for watching today, and I hope that you tune in again sometime soon.